So we'll talk about your career, but I just wanted to start with Brenda. Because I wondered when you'd first met her and when you sort of knew that she would be the subject of your film.
Um, well, what happened was Lisa Stevens, who made a film with Stephanie, Brenda's partner, Brenda's sidekick, and we learn in the film that her son's inside for 42 years. She was making a film in Chicago called Crack House USA, and she asked me, she said, oh, look, we've got this idea, to make a film about prostitution in Chicago. And if I'm being honest, which I am going to be, because it's mainly friends here, I can see loads of people. It's so nice. I'm really, really happy up here. Actually, I'd be happier to be down there. But anyway, I thought, and it's exactly what you said, Kira, I don't really like making films about depressing things and I hate the idea of victims. And I thought, how would you make a film about sex workers and prostitution that wasn't gloomy? And in fact, Lisa will tell you that I talked us out of getting money from BBC, because the woman, we had to go and do a pitch, and she said, how is it going to be, not another gloomy film about prostitution? Instead of going, which you're meant to do, you're meant to sort of pitch. I said, I know. So anyway, I blew that one. But then Lisa came back with a little trailer of Brenda, and it was a bit like, like when your first day at school, I don't know if you remember that, or you go to college, or, oh, I know what it's like. The end of Boyhood, if anyone's seen it, and he meets his housemate, and then he meets the girl, and they have they have hash cookie, and then they go they go on the hike, and they go to the canyon, and you think, oh, this person, they understand, this is a good, I feel good about this person. It was like that. It was sort of love at first sight with Brenda, and I thought, God, we could do something really good together. I love this woman. And what I love about her is that she said, I can sit upright. She said, is that she doesn't preach, and she's not a sort of social workery person or a religious person or any of those things. She's fun, and I thought could be really, really brilliant. Working with her, we could really get on. So that was that's a long answer to a very short question.
And I suspect that Brenda was quite a sort of willing participant, but were there other people who were involved in the film who it was more difficult to kind of persuade them to speak on screen?
Well, you know what? It's not, I would never persuade anyone, because I think that's kind of weird and a bit creepy maybe as well. That, the scene, and you've all seen the film, which is so nice, because I know what you've just seen. The scene in the school where those girls suddenly start talking about their experiences, and you can see that Brenda's really taken aback, and she says, oh, I didn't know this was going to come out. And you can see she doesn't, for once she's lost for words. She kind of goes, oh, and you can see, because what she's been doing up to that point is talking to them about not having sex and how they can protect themselves. And so and then she learns that one was 9, one was 14, and then one was 4. And then when a couple of girls were going out, and I was being ridiculous, and it feels horrible and indulgent because I was crying, but it wasn't. It was a mix of, the crying was a mix of things. It was recognition, because I'd been through the same thing, not somebody I knew, it was strangers, and also joy that they were doing it. I can still feel that joy. And in fact, I can't watch that scene without sort of, and it's just, at last, it's like it burst out of them. And one by one, and you only saw 4, I think, whereas every single girl in that class wanted to talk. And I think in a group of people this size, I can't be the only one. There must be loads of other people here who've had some experience of sexual violence. I'm sure you have, men and women. And so that felt brilliant. And it felt like I knew when the girl was going out, she said, we did it for you. And she didn't mean me. She meant us as a group making the film, and Brenda. but also because there was a point to it. It wasn't just telling Brenda. Do you remember Sharita says, I would tell my mother every time it happened and she would cry. But what's the point of crying if you don't do anything about it? What's the point of telling someone if there's no, if it's not going to change anything? And I think they all suddenly thought, look, we've got witnesses. We've had a lifetime of nobody listening or nobody believing us. And here at last, we're going to be heard. And it must have been really wonderful. And I think we've got that really a lot in this country. I'm sure we all feel that, is that people are made to be victims or they're not heard. Those girls in Rotherham, nobody listened to them. And they kept telling people. And, it's so exciting that we can all start talking about it and telling people. And, because I remember when it happened to me, I was really beaten up, so there was no way I could hide it. And I thought, shall I just not go into film school? I was at film school. I'd just started as well.
So how old were you? Sort of 18, 19?
No, I was at film school, so I was in early 20s.
Say,
And I thought, I won't go in. Then I thought, no, look, I'm going to go in. And if somebody asks me what it is, I'm going to just tell them. And the reaction I got was so odd, because I told this woman who I quite liked. She came up and said, Kim, what happened to your face? And I think she thought I'd been in a fight or something. And I said, I told her what happened, really briefly. I didn't make a big deal of it as I was queuing for my lunch. And she sort of backed away, and I don't think she spoke to me again. And it was embarrassment. I know, it's funny. I love it when people... It's good that we laugh about the ridiculousness of things, It is. It was ridiculous. And she, every time I saw her, she sort of went like that, So...
Well, no, that's really interesting, because one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, so you have a lot of women in your films who something terrible has happened to them and it has made them want to speak out or fight back against abuse. And given the trajectory of your career and the themes of your career, I was wondering if there was an experience or experiences which had led to you wanting to speak up about women's lives. And do you think that's the case?
Do you know what, Kira? I think it's not about women's lives. I think, if we had a world where men were locked up at the age of when they got, puberty, or if they were shot for going to school, or big chunks of them were cut, or if you would reverse it, I think those are the stories we'd want to tell, because they would be the people that had that passion of wanting to break out, like those girls at the school, but what I'm really pleased about with this film, that what happened is that Homer, it's not just girls, it is boys as well, and men, and it's also that they're caught in this whole thing. I think what it is that we're starting to, all of us, reinvent what feminine and masculine is, that actually being feminine doesn't mean being weak. We can be adventurous, we can, and being a man means you can be silly now. I live with two very silly men, and also they can come and say, what do I look like in this, and they can be sensitive, and you can, that it traps both of us when, and redefining what the roles are and saying, look, we can take each other's roles. And lots of people are doing, Eddie Izzard comes on stage with his heels on, and he's made himself look good in them, and it's become part of our world, and we just need to start redefining it. And I think that's what, it's all part of it. Sorry, it's another long answer to your question. So, it's the good stories and the good people, really.
Yeah. Although not everyone wants to tell, not everyone tells stories of people sort of overcoming victimhood. So
I hate the idea of being a victim, because
I
always felt
the overcoming.
when I was a kid. I know.
Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing with you. Because, when I was at boarding school, I felt like a victim. I was bullied, and so when I went to college, I changed my name, and I thought, I'm not going to see myself as a victim anymore. Right. So I'm going to be different. Yeah. And it's a life. I think we all face it. And you see it with Brenda. I love what Brenda says. She says, it takes a lot of work putting yourself together like this, doesn't she, in the car? Yeah. She says, this doesn't just happen, I have to... And you see her putting on the eyelashes and the wigs, and that she's all these different people. I know.
I love the wigs.
I love the wigs.
I want the wigs. That's interesting that you mentioned boarding school as well, because I interviewed Kim a few years ago, and she was talking about boarding school and about this extraordinary experience that you had, which was that you were put into Coventry by your teachers for a term, so no one was allowed to speak to you for a term.
I know she came to. I had the same feeling with Kira that I when you came in, I thought, oh, I like this person. It was, I got that with you. Yeah.
Yeah, and you had to go and stay in somewhere which is like something out of the worst fairy tale called Turret House.
Turret House at the top.
Turret House. So you were sort of stuck in there, but I wondered if that had affected your filmmaking, sort of being in isolation and being in silence like that.
I don't know, that would be neat, wouldn't it?
It would be very neat. It would be very neat. It would be like a fairy tale.
Yeah.
But you don't think...
No, I would love to say that I was a rebel at boarding school, because they're the people I love and admire. Yeah. And I was always trying to be good, and I would just do things. I mean, here again, all my friends will know that if you say, meet you at the bus stop, and you go left and right and then left again, I will spend hours looking for the fucking bus stop. I can't find it, So I was always lost or in the wrong place at the wrong time or losing my possessions or it wasn't anything glamorous or, No. And I was in Turret House for getting lost, and then nobody talked to me and then I became an outcast. It wasn't anything I did.
No.
Oh,
no, I'm not suggesting it was like
they
made the right decision.
My sister was the rebel and I was the goody-goody, but,
It didn't pay off. You weren't made for that kind of regimented life.
No, I probably wasn't, no. But if I could have found my way, I would have been on time.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely.
Each film is a friend, is somebody I want to work with. And I don't think, what's scary about it is you don't know if it's going to be good or not, which is why I messed up the BBC thing. Because you just have to hope it'll be good, and you want to tell a good story. So there's a story there and an amazing person or somebody with an amazing story, and you just have to hope you can do it justice. That's what it is. And it's just, Del, I can't do anything else. What else can I do? That's what I do, and I just will go on until,
Have you ever started a film and then realised, actually, this is not good? No. So it always works out?
Well, up to now it does. Up to now it has, I think it's a lifestyle. I think that lifestyle is a really good word for mindset as well. I think that what Brenda's trying to do is she's putting herself back together all the time by helping other girls. And I think it is a lifestyle. It's a whole way of life and a whole mindset. Do you remember when she's in the class and she says, I used to be beaten all the time with those cable wires. I'm not quite sure what they are. But and that wasn't nearly as bad as the emotional damage. And I think what you do is you get programmed for it, and so you're breaking out of a whole way of life, and someone like Marie, the white girl, she was on the streets from the age of 8. So it's not just I think it's a clever word because it's not a job, it's a whole way of life that you have to break out of. So it's really, really tough, and it's everything often. And everything, almost like you've been programmed from it. If you think that Brenda was being molested by friends of her grandmother from the age of 4, that's a really tough thing to break out of and start feeling you have some self-worth and that you can do something else. It must be really, really hard to do it. So it is kind of a lifestyle. I think it's quite a good word, really. What I was quite keen on, because we were showing it at Sundance, that was the first screening, and I really wanted Brenda to see it for the first time with an audience. And she came with Robin, the girl with glasses, and Stephanie, and also with Marie. And they watched it with an audience like you. It felt like a really nice audience. It felt like this. It felt a really friendly audience. And of course the audience applauded them, and they got lots of people coming up to them and hugging them, and it was like a really big, wonderful experience for them. And then Lisa went to New York with Sharita, and she said that Sharita sort of blossomed after the film and just was talking to everybody and had her photo taken with Jodie Foster. She didn't know who Jodie Foster was. And so I've seen a picture of Sharita with Jodie Foster, and it's quite nice she didn't know who she was, in a way. But, you know, and loved being there and loved being, you know, part of this. And actually, I think it must be amazing if you've never really been valued and never been, you know, and to have a whole cinema of people, you know, loving you, because Sharita is wonderful in the film, I think, you know, and I think people would come up to her and she would talk to them. And, you know, I know quite a few times in Sundance women would come up and say, you know, I've been putting up with this sort of thing and I'm not going to anymore, and thank you, Brenda, and all that sort of thing. Because with an audience like this, all of us are going to relate to the film differently. You know, when I saw Boyhood, I related to the end very strongly, which is a sort of hippie-ish ending when he says, I'm really in the moment, which is the sort of thing I would say. And my friends go, oh, God, Kim's off again. And then the girl says, you know, no, the moment's in you. But what that meant to me was that he'd met somebody that he could relate to and that he was going to be friends with probably forever. And I liked it. It wasn't a romantic thing. It was like he'd met a friend. He'd met people. So, you know, I think we all do. And I watched it with three friends, and they went, well, it was okay, but it was a bit, you know, a bit episodic. And I went, I'm giving it 10 out of 10. So, you know, we're all going to, if we can put ourselves in the film and relate to it because it means something to us, we're going to like it. And if not, we're not going to like it. And that's just a fact. And I think you just have to, you know, I don't want people to think those people out there, you know, oh, poor Brenda, poor Sharita, which is what, you know, I want them to think, oh, I'd love to be like Brenda, you know, she's an inspiration, maybe I can change my life, or I love Sharita, you know. I loved it when she said, I've been at school 2 days in a row, and it's a big, you know, a really big, you know, it's like me saying I found the room 2 days in a row. It's been my equivalent of that. You know, it's different for everybody watching it, I think. I think those are small struggles, you see. I think those girls in the school, those are ordinary lives. And I think a lot of us, more than we would even like to know, have had experiences like that and put up with it. You know, the moment I really love is when Brenda says to Diana's mother, she says, don't you believe your baby? And then her mother can't breathe. You know, she almost is fighting for breath, and she goes, well, it happened to me and I couldn't tell anyone. I held it in. And she's a very ordinary woman. They are ordinary in a way, you know. And I think what's amazing is that ordinary people can be extraordinary in extraordinary situations. That's how I'd like to see it more. I made a film in a boarding school in Oxford about disturbed children. And each one of those kids was extraordinary, but they were very ordinary, just excluded kids, you know, that probably, you know, wouldn't, and the teachers there were absolutely amazing, but wouldn't think that they were doing anything amazing. They're just teachers who are doing kind of, I thought it was like Herculean, you know, I know that sounds really stupid word to use, it's the only thing I could think of, but, you know, they were loving these kids and showing them how to love. They were showing them that they could be lovable and they could love. But they would call themselves ordinary teachers. So I don't know. I'm not being antagonistic, I'm just saying I think they are ordinary. I mean, can I just say, this, which is, I find for me also, meeting people like Brenda helps me put things back that have gone awry, you know, and there was moments in the film where, you know, like in the school when the daughter Ruth, when Robin says to her, when did you find out your mum was a prostitute? And she said, we always knew. And, you know, we loved mum even though she did, you know, and then Brenda says, I abandoned them. And Brenda's feeling really bad, and you can see she feels really, really bad. And then Ruth is sort of saying to her, look, mum, you know, that's the past. You've got to let it go. You've got to... And I think for all of us, it's really easy to... we all need to look at our past, you know, even from early childhood and actually, you know, recognise wrong things we've done or, you know, and come to terms with them. But we've also got to let them go. And I think I went up to Brenda after that and said, Brenda, look, let it go. Don't keep feeling bad. You know, you did that because that was where you were at the time. And in saying that to her, it really, really helped me. I know that sounds, but, you know, and I'm hoping that happens to other people. It's not just me, that you think, well, Brenda needs to start forgiving herself. Because also when she talks about victim and victimizer, to survive on the streets, you also have to do terrible things, you know, to survive. And, you know, and I think that's something also she's coming to terms with. And you can see in the film that there's moments when she gets really, really low and almost like the whole mask. The mask isn't there for us, the mask is there for the world, and we all do this every day of our lives. You put yourself together when you leave the house to go to work or wherever it is you go and do. You have to put yourself together because we're all a massive, well, I can't be the only one. There's some massive insecurities and doubts, and we, you know, like when I went to BBC, believe it or not, I did sort of try and put myself together a bit, you know, to try and, you know, and so you can see through the film the moments when Brenda really is low, like when she's in bed and she hears that Tamika's pregnant, you know, and she says, she sort of throws the phone down and she goes, you know, well, that's what happens. You know, I did that, I did the same thing. And there's a moment of real bleakness. And I think any of us that listen to the news, or there must be days or times when we feel that, you know, my God, it's all so bad. What's the point of... you know, that it's so difficult, it's all stacked against us. And then you just have to, you look out and it's a beautiful day and you've got a friend and, you know, we're such weird, contradictory, mixed beings, you know. And I think that's what Brenda's like. But it's more extreme with Brenda, and that's why I found it fascinating. She's breezy, she's all these different people. And I think that's also about child abuse and serious abuse, that you split yourself into these different people. And Homer did it with Fancy and Homer. You know, that's how they survive, is by... Homer does, you know, is at home, he's beaten up by his dad, he's molested at 9. It's Fancy that sends the girls out. It's Fancy that makes the money and wears the sharp suits, you know, and he's split. And maybe that's what, you know, other people that do terrible things, that's how they cope with it.